has joined the meeting.
So, welcome everyone to this MLA annual call webinar for the 2018-19 annual call. This webinar we will specifically be talking about breeder productivity for sheep and cattle. My name is Irene Svoboda. I am MLA's Program Manager for the consultation framework. My job is to look after the regional consultation that sits behind the annual call, which is the framework where MLA goes out and talks to producers about what the priorities are for R&D in the upcoming years. And then also the other part of my job is to look after the annual call. As you know, the MLA annual call went live just nearly 2 weeks ago now. So today is a good chance to come online here and talk to MLA's program managers. I'll just introduce them in a minute. But we do have both Nick Sangster here, who's our program manager for grass-fed productivity, and we've got Richard Apt, who's our program manager for sheep R&D and objective measurement. And I will give them a chance to talk in a minute. But before I do, I just wanted to take you through the timeline for the annual call this year very briefly. You will be able to find a lot of this information online as well on MLA's website. The call went live on the 27th of September and will stay open until the 30th of October, which is just 1 day short of 5 weeks this year, a little bit longer this year, given feedback MLA has taken last year that we need a little bit more time for people to put together their preliminary stage of the proposal. The application template and everything you need to know, the guidelines around it are all on the website as well. The key thing to remember for the preliminary stage is that you're writing to producers. Producers will be reviewing their preliminary proposals, and if they do not understand what you're saying, if you write in really strong technical language, producers may not understand it, and hence they may not rate your project as highly as they otherwise would have done if they understood it. So that's really just something to keep in mind. You will also find on MLA's website a feedback sheet. We've collated the feedback we've given to project components over the last couple of years. So there's a lot of really valuable feedback in there to understand why MLA has not funded projects in the past. And so we strongly encourage you to have a look at that. After the producer panel review of the preliminary proposals, MLA will call for full proposals from the 29th of January to 23rd of February. That stage will be open for 4 weeks. And when MLA receives the full applications, we will send them to our independent expert panel where they will be reviewed. And the expert panel will provide recommendations to MLA and to the Red Meat panel. They will meet early May next year, and the Red Meat panel will then endorse the project that they would like MLA to go ahead and fund for the next financial year. We are hoping at this stage that we can start new projects from July 2018. So this call is all about projects that will start in the next financial year. Okay, I will now pass over to Nick Sangster and Richard Apt, who will briefly explain what this terms of reference we're looking at today is all about.
Okay, so Nick Sangster here. Morning, everybody. I assume it's morning where you are. I'll just briefly talk about the beef call, and the terms of reference describe everything. Just for clarity, there is a tender for what appears to be a similar approach out at the moment. That tender is for beef only, and it's for projects that are ready to roll. So it is a little bit, maybe a bit confusing, and if you want to ask anything about the tender, I suggest you email me or phone me out after this meeting. So it's for projects, as I said, ready to go, and the reason why the tender's there is that last year's annual call projects funded nothing in the area of reproduction for beef. So we're trying to catch up a little bit in that area. So the annual call this year is very similar to last year's. In fact, it mirrors it very closely because the reason we didn't fund anything from last year's collection. The overall aim is to improve weaning rates north and south in terms of reproduction efficiency and reducing calf loss. They're the two components. This remains one of our highest priorities for the industry in order to get around those issues and look for innovative ideas that may be research-driven, but we're especially interested in practical outcomes to make a difference to this industry. So that's my introduction. Happy to answer any questions now or later. Maybe we'll just go with Richard and then we'll have any questions.
Okay, thanks, Nick. So as you'll see from the terms of reference, the sheep R&D portfolio at the moment is quite weighted towards reproduction outcomes, both from a production and profit perspective, but also from an animal welfare perspective. Land survival and I think equally but probably less recognised ewe survival are still significant impacts there and considered to be a significant risk from a public and consumer perception perspective. So it covers both those areas. And you'll also see some comments there in the sense that the weighting of projects, the weighting of thinking in this area, we believe now needs to be focusing more on the extension adoption end of the pipeline. There's quite a lot of knowledge from a technical perspective, and that's not to say there isn't more things that can be understood better, but we still have a lot of land producers who could make some noticeable improvements by taking up and implementing well-tested management strategies that the top-end producers already do now as day-to-day business. So there's a general feeling amongst the process and the bringing us through the consultation panels that they'll be more interested in things that are going to deliver impact on farm as opposed to at the pure science end of that spectrum. I think just as a general thing there. I guess the other general point to make is that while there's been no reduction in the sheep productivity R&D budget allocation within MLA, there were several large projects that came through the last call cycle and that were supported through the producer panels and the expert science panel review and are currently going through the sort of final processes with internal approvals process. And they will commit the majority of this next year's budget in this area. So while I don't have a definite budget allocation from our finance allocations for the next financial year yet, based on something in the similar ballpark as what we have at the moment, I'm expecting we can probably only afford one reasonable sized project or two smaller sort of projects in this area. So I'm encouraging people to be really focused in what they might think to put in here because the funding opportunity is restricted. As I say, not because there's less money in this area, but because there's a significant forward commitment based on several big projects that came through the last call.
Thank you, Richard and Nick. We'll now open up for questions from everyone online. Does anyone have their hands up?
I'll make another comment if you like, Irene. Based on Richard's comment there about budgets, as I mentioned, we didn't fund any projects in this area in this current round. In this specific area, we are funding some projects, but there is a significant budget in beef, in contrast, because we just haven't filled the project. So we're really encouraging. Well, obviously, if you work on sheep, it's editing on sheep, so they make up stuff. But just to make the point, again, this is really a big priority for us, and we want some good work to start up.
That sounds good.
Nick, I had a question, if I could.
Yes, please.
Could you please state your name and your organisation?
Sorry, Kelly Stanger from the University of Melbourne.
Thank you,
Can
Kelly.
you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
My question was, are you focused on northern beef more so than southern beef, or is there a fairly uniform allocation between those two systems?
It will depend, Kelly, on what comes into us. There is an issue, the calf loss issue, particularly in northern beef, is fairly critical. However, there are issues in southern beef. My guess, we'll certainly hope to fund something in southern beef across this area as well. My guess is the emphasis will be northern, but if we don't get any really good northern projects, and ideas from the south can often be relevant in some context to the north as well. So when we don't have a separate north and south budget anymore, we've put beef productivity all together so that we can really get the best projects funded rather than be restricted by bits of budget. So I would encourage southern projects coming forward, particularly in that reproduction area. I think there are some important things to happen in the south.
Great, thanks, Nick.
Are there any other questions for Nick and Richard? No? If there are no more questions, I will still encourage you. I'll just scroll down this side here so you can see their contact details. We still encourage everyone to get in touch and have a chat to MLA. These program managers have a very good understanding of the producer requirements and the producer needs out there. So feel free to get in touch and have a good chat to them. Okay. Any last minute comments? That was a quick webinar today. Well, if nothing else, I'd like to thank everyone for attending, and again, feel free to contact your program manager.
Get in touch.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Great. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Has left the meeting.